There is support for sending checks to Americans. They certainly need it. You and some others have argued that if you don't fix these companies, when we get to the other side, there's going to be no place for people to work.
Well, look, what I proposed in the New York Times yesterday, and I'll say it again on your air, is that we need to wrap this economy in a blanket right now across the board for every company. The idea of idiosyncratically saving the airlines, but not the restaurants. You know, who knows about, ski mountains? You can name the industry that's getting hit. Everybody's getting hit. And so the question is, how do you do it? How do you do it now? How do you do it almost retroactively, given the steps that folks like Danny Meyer have already had to take? And Danny's right, though, which is it is going to take 4 to 6 weeks to even get back up and running when you reopen. There's cost to that. And so what I would like to do is see us, the U.S. government, that is, step in, provide funding, provide loans, no interest loans to businesses across the country so that they actually keep them on the payroll. I believe that those loans should be conditional so that 90% of employees stay on the payroll, a 5-year payback period. Danny, it'll cost you money over those 5 years. It's 2 months of lost revenue or 3 months lost revenue is terrible. But I believe if it's spread over 5 years, that most American companies, even razor-thin margin businesses, can accept that as part of the shared sacrifice of what's going on in this country. But I don't think right now the U.S. government, even with all the patchwork of steps that are being taken, appreciate how terrible it is. What Danny's doing is being done every single minute. I've been on the phone with CEOs literally the past 48 hours, and I can't tell you how many people are literally making their layoff plans while I'm on the other end of the line, Stephanie. And I hate to panic the audience, but it's something that I think the public needs to understand where we really are, and we can't get behind this.
But Andrew, how important is it for the government to really nail the point you just made about the conditionality of these loans? You know the 2008 crisis maybe better than anyone I know outside those CEOs of banks. And we know that's when Occupy Wall Street was born. Yep. That's when we saw the rise in democratic socialism. It only exacerbated income inequality when you saw executives and shareholders win and people across the country fail. If we just go and step in and help companies, we have to be really careful about how we do it, don't we?
Look, I think the issue is what's the vessel to employees? I'm not in the business of trying to save companies for the sake of saving companies. I'm in this to save employees and individuals and their families ultimately. That's got to be the goal. Sending out checks directly to individuals, though, doesn't actually take care of the problem, because what most Americans really want is to know that they have a paycheck and to know they have a paycheck on the other side of this, and to know that there are still businesses that are not in bankruptcy that are actually up and running and operating when, in fact, we get to the other side. And so we need to take care of individuals. But I think that the vessel to do that with, which is through companies, for better or worse, the question is what you want to get back for that or not. My view is if you do it indiscriminately, meaning if you blanket everybody on the same terms, that you actually won't have the same political problem that we had before, where we were picking winners and losers.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.